It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 285. Tonight I'm joined by Emo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hi.
Kodra.
And now the healing may begin.
Tam.
Ferrite beads.
Phelan.
Be sure to protect your family from parasitic oscillations.
Also, Tesla Cage.
No, you hurt me deeply.
Yeah, like, we're not going to explain that any further, I don't know. Actually, we probably should.
Amazon reviews are a treasure trove.
Yes.
Yeah, like, there's a thing called a Ferrite bead. And it is like a plastic harness with ferrite inside of it, like usually 2 plates of ferrite that you clip onto cables.
Yeah, it's a little plastic cylinder that's right at the one or end of the other of a cable that you've probably seen a million times and never been sure what it is.
Yeah, and like it does a purpose, and it is usually to fix problems with unshielded cables or poorly shielded cable. And like you will use it a lot in audio equipment to try and reduce interference. It does not stop radiation. It does not, cause any other effects other than maybe increasing like the or reducing the amount of noise on a cable.
Attaching tiny ferrite beads to your earbud cables will not prevent your cell phone from frying your brain, mostly because your cell phone cannot fry your brain.
It's true.
I mean, it'll mostly just make it way easier to yank your earbuds out of your ear.
It's true.
So yeah, like there's an Amazon review with someone who very earnestly gives a heartfelt story about how they've attached ferrite beads to all the cables in their household, and it has reversed the radiation poisoning from electromagnetic frequency, and now the healing can begin. So all hail the ferrite bead.
All hail the ferrite bead.
In non-wackadoo news, I have been playing a ridiculous amount of Greedfall, and so first of all, like, I bounced pretty heavily from this game, and I know we've talked a little bit about this game, but I have words, and I'm probably about 20 hours in, something like that, and I'm not sure what was different this time, but I restarted the game, because I was mostly looking for something new to play that was an RPG.
You want to know what's different?
What?
You played The Witcher 2, and now you're adjusted to the controls that are awful.
It's true. That's probably a lot of it, is like, I played through The Witcher 2. It has not good controls. Greedfall also has glaring flaws in the control department.
Greedfall is a game with controls so bad on PC but I liked it enough that I bought it on PS4 to play it there, and it was immensely better.
I've been playing it on PC, and it is way better controlling than Witcher 2.
I mean, fair.
So, yeah, like, I actually got far enough into the story for it to set its hooks in me, and my opinion of this game has been changing as I moved. So, like, at first I was thinking, this is a pretty good BioWare clone with obvious control difficulties. Like, that was my feeling for a long while. And then it really started doing some interesting things. And, like, you would be hard-pressed to find a game that cares more about your actions and oftentimes punishes you for your actions than Greedfall. Like, in some ways, it kind of reminds me of the way Tyranny felt, where, yeah, you make some actions and then you're just going to live with them because, the game isn't going to let you off the hook. And this has had I have been personally attacked by this.
So, like, one of the things that I really, really loved about this game, and I've been loving about some of the better RPGs that have come out, there's an RPG writing trope that I've gotten really frustrated with, where you can just do everything. you can do all things, you can complete all quests, you can do all of the things and be all of the good, and none of your choices actually matter. Because you can just, unless there's a great big, like, you're making a choice and it matters, like, warning, you doing things, you can do them in whatever order, there's no urgency, it's all like a really thin illusion. And it was one of the things that I loved about Tyranny, and I love it in Greedfall too.
Right, because, like, you'll be playing along, and you will have made a choice that feels innocuous. But then all of a sudden in the background, you see some dialogue saying, you failed this side quest, or you failed this side quest. And you have no idea how those two relate. And, like, still, I don't know how those two were related, but something I just did walled me off from ever exploring that path. There's a thing I do in these style of games, like, I'm going to loosely call them the BioWare style game, where I will pick a party of people that I like, because, like, I usually have pretty hot and cold opinions on characters in these games. I either really love them or I really hate them. And in Greedfall, I almost exclusively spent my time playing with Siora, which is the native daughter of, like, a tribal leader that comes and asks for your help. And Vasco, which was the captain of the ship that brought you to Tierfredi. And it was the pirate and tribal show for me. And, like, that's the only factions I gave a shit about, because they were the only factions that made me not feel horrible to help them out. And the game absolutely gave me a third act sucker punch, because I had been ignoring characters and had never moved them above suspicious in our faction. Like, there's like a personal faction rating, like how these characters feel about you, and they were all suspicious of me. And the shit hit the fan, and I had to make some very rapid decisions that permanently changed the game. And based on my reading, apparently this thing was largely triggered by the fact that, like, I had ignored some characters. So, and it's permanent. Like I reached a point where I no longer have some characters because some stuff happened.
I love that kind of thing because it makes every playthrough different.
Right, like, yeah, like, so I don't think that there's a way to have a quote-unquote perfect playthrough of the game where, like, you can do everything and you can save everyone, and, you know, because that was always the thing with, like, Mass Effect, is there was a golden path if you were good enough in the second game where pretty much you could accomplish all the checkboxes. And that was the path that I was, you know, was striving for. But, like, this is a game that will abuse you based on your choices. Because kind of like the original Baldur's Gate, it sets you up in a scenario where, like, you have people that will not like each other no matter what you do. Like, it is, you cannot somehow turn them into, you know, your party of sycophants that will follow you around. Like, no, they inherently have their own baked in identity that you're not going to change.
Yeah, it makes for me, it makes the characters feel more real, like more authentic. That you can't basically manipulate every person and every situation into some, like, magical golden outcome.
You can't just give them presents until they love you so much that it doesn't matter what you do.
You're
right.
And I think that it, at some point, like, this kind of game would have driven me nuts, because, like, I want the absolute best happy ending where everyone is happy.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I play through Mass Effect, I play it through the same way.
Yeah. Like, Greedfall is one of those games that has, my opinion of it has evolved, like I said, and the longer I play it, the higher up on my list it gets. Like, I am super impressed with this game, and I am probably going to be disappointed, but I absolutely picked up the game from Spiders that was released prior to this one, just to see, like, is it also a diamond in the rough?
So you know what this...
That's Technomancer, right?
Technomancer, yeah.
The idea of game that doesn't let me have the perfect ending really also reminds me of Pyre.
Yeah. Yes. And
Which
I loved Pyre for that too. And I loved Pyre because Pyre narratively rewarded me for mechanically failing in the game.
Mhm.
And that was really, really cool.
And I think to some extent it also goes back to like one of the things that we talked about during our WoW Classic discussion is games as story engine. Like, my playthrough experience is going to be different than like Tam's playthrough experience. And we can sit down and have a conversation about like, oh, I did this in this situation and this was what happened. And like, oh no, I did this in that situation and this totally different sequence of events happened. And like, it's kind of hard to have that in a single player experience. Like in game experiences where other players are involved, you're always going to have stories to tell, but like, this is a game that can create stories in a single player environment.
Yeah, like because there's a whole bunch of different paths and there isn't a correct path, it generates conversations because like it isn't just, oh hey, we both did the right thing and now we don't have anything to talk about because we had identical experiences, or we don't have as much to talk about because we had identical experiences. Whereas, like, we took different paths and we can discuss them and, like, why we took them.
Yeah, I just wish I had managed to get into this last year before we actually recorded the Games of the Year show, since this was on the list, but it definitely earned its spot, in my eyes, too. And I am deeply looking forward to whatever game Spiders comes out with next. Like, it has gone from... Greedfall was kind of a quirky game that had a really interesting setting that was examining some things that you don't ever see examined in anything other than like a 4X or a strategy game, the evils of colonization. But now it's absolutely going to be like anything that they're coming out with, I'm going to be watching and will probably just pick up based on my experience with Greedfall.
Yeah, I feel like even in a 4X game, it doesn't do a good job, for the most part, of challenging the concepts of colonialism. Mostly it feels like they always celebrate it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And the thing is like, that's the only time you ever see it explored, period. Like, in a good way or a bad way, like, it's just not the topic of a video game. Yeah,
I wish it was, because... Well, so here's the problem. I like 4X game, but yeah, they definitely have a gross undertone of the way to win is to expand, exploit, exterminate. Like, it's right there in the 4Xs. Like, it's all about thriving through colonialism.
Right.
And like, this is one of those things that you can almost go back to like is it possible to make a first-person shooter game that doesn't, like, glorify gun violence? Is it possible to make a 4X game that doesn't, in some way, glorify colonialism? Like, can you come up with that concept, but reimagined such that you aren't, displacing people in order to claim their resources so that you can get bigger and better and stronger?
And thus far, the answer has been no.
I mean, the ways I see it at least become more palatable is like, well, and we can argue about this, and I'm certainly willing to entertain it, but is like, in a fantasy setting where you're going out and fighting big monsters, that's a different theme, but I can also see that being like, well, that's just otherizing the people you're exploiting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a way of doing this. It makes me uncomfortable because I like strategy games, I like 4X games. I don't know. Does Stellaris' differentiating it by making it like you're mostly occupying uninhabited planets? Asterisk, there are certain planets that are already inhabited.
Yeah, like you definitely run into planets.
Stellaris lets you be as into that or not into that as you would choose to be, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. I guess Stellaris actually has an ethics about, like, hey, how do you deal with interacting with native, like, planets that have other races on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they're, like, xenophile, let's put them into zoos is great. And the opposite of that is xenophobic, let's purge them or do awful things to them. Not much better. It's much worse, but...
I mean, you can observe and study and still get some benefit from that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, like, invasive studying. So I guess that's something. Like, you can force yourself to, like, abide by the Prime Directive and not hobble yourself immensely in doing so. It's not perfect.
It is interesting
something.
Because you do kind of hobble yourself. Like, is there an advantage to non-invasive studies? Like, is there, like...
The xenophile faction prohibits invasive studies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also you could theoretically decide to uplift them, which it's questionable whether that's good or not. Like, we're once again getting into the whole, colonialism thing, and, like, why do we get to decide that they should be uplifted?
Yep.
But if they, like, I mean, if you sit there and wait long enough, eventually they'll discover space flight on their own, and you could be the first one to make contact with them, which isn't terrible. And up to that point, you're getting research points. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I can think of games where the whole point of the game was, this thing is bad and we're going to, focus on that. But not games that just, it's an element of the game and you can be the one that decides this is not a thing that I should do, and you're not basically penalized by the game.
I'm definitely on board for games that explore things that don't ever get explored.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super happy to see this, especially in an RPG. I mean, I was really happy to see, like, Tyranny do a very non-traditional take on, the PC RPG experience. And, like, I definitely put Greedfall kind of in that same category. Like, it feels like a similarly inspired game. So, another game that I heard this week that I need to check out is Elsinore.
Yeah, so this is where I edit my games of last year. So the premise of Elsinore is it's Hamlet. You play as Ophelia. You're stuck in a time loop. You're trying not to die at the end. And it's a pretty compelling setup. You play as, like, it's a pretty compelling setup. It does a bunch of things to change, like, actually what happens with Hamlet. Sometimes in relatively cosmetic ways and sometimes not. And it's really, really good. Like, it's got the writing is real snappy. It does a thing where you can basically go around and watch. You can basically go around and, like, eavesdrop in on events and conversations that are happening. And as you do so, and also as you talk to people, you know more things that you can talk to people about. So if you, for example, I'm trying to think of a good example. If you see Hamlet talking to the playmaster who's going to put on the play that makes Claudius go nuts and exposes Claudius, you now know that Hamlet is working with the playmaster. And you can talk to other people about this, including Hamlet and the playmaster. But so you have this whole arc going on. But every time you die and restart, you retain everything you know. And so what this means is that you can go down some real, like, dark paths that give you just the right amount of access to the right places to know things that you shouldn't, so that then you can expose those things in the future.
Okay.
And, like, different characters will react differently to you telling them that information, and sometimes you don't want to. Because if you, for example, get proof that Claudius killed Hamlet's dad and tell Claudius, he'll put you to death.
Makes sense.
So you probably don't want to do that. But if you tell Hamlet, you will dramatically accelerate Hamlet going off on Claudius and challenging him. And this could go badly or well, depending on your opinion of Hamlet, because different people are in different states of mind. You can also tell things to people that are, like, devastating to them, and stuff can happen such that people are devastated or upset. at which point they won't listen to you if you talk to them for some amount of time, potentially forever, until the next reset.
How long is a single playthrough?
A single playthrough is 3 days, 3 or 4 days.
How long, like, does that take, like, in play hours?
Oh, like 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay,
Like,
so you're getting a lot of iteration.
Yeah, you're going through a lot of iterations.
That's
and
cool.
like,
Well, that's a lot faster than Omen Sight, where it takes about an hour per iteration.
like you can take about an hour per iteration, but you have the ability to restart. You can basically be like, nope, let me restart this loop. I've discovered the thing I need to. I want to restart this loop. You can also speed up time if you're waiting for some particular event that you want to see happen. And there's usually like, there can be up to 4 or 5 different events going on at any given time, and you can only watch one of them at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, the first few playthroughs, or if I'm doing something very specific and like trying to manipulate lots of different things, I think the longest single time run I had was like 45 minutes. But most of them were much faster than that, especially when I was like going for very specific things.
I'd also imagine it's possible for you to get killed before day 4.
You can get killed in a number of ways. You can get killed in a lot of different ways. And figuring out, like, one major piece was, there's somebody that I need to talk to on Sunday. But for the first while, I was getting murdered on Saturday afternoon. And so I had to figure out how to not die on Saturday so I could make it to Sunday. But it's really, really cool. It goes every character I talked to was interesting. Even the ones that I really ultimately like, even the characters that I didn't like, and there's a lot of characters not to like because this is Hamlet, are interesting.
Can they add some additional characters to not like?
There's also a lot. There's a lot of characters. There's also a lot of like characters who are Shakespeare references that aren't actually in Hamlet.
I was going to say, I saw a screenshot like Othello's in it, apparently.
Yeah, Othello's hanging out, tending bar, telling stories.
Okay.
Because reasons.
And there's all kinds of endings that you can achieve when you sort of, as you piece apart what's actually going on and how you can do anything about it. But it's also really neat, just like if you do nothing, the play of Hamlet will more or less play out the way you expect, but it will play out in all kinds of different ways depending on how you approach it and what you manipulate.
I mean, this sounds at least a little reminiscent of the Sexy Brutale, but Shakespearean.
Yes.
And that was a game that I liked a whole lot. So
yeah,
this sounds very much up my alley.
It's kind of like a cross between the Sexy Brutale and Return of the Obra Dinn, because the Sexy Brutale was a lot more like action focused. It was like observe things and action, whereas Obra Dinn was a lot more narratively focused.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a lot more on the narrative side, but presented more like the Sexy Brutale. It's also really good at it. It's the kind of thing that I think if the UX weren't as good, this would be an incredibly frustrating game to play. Because it's like, oh my god, I have to remember where all of these events are occurring and when and with whom and where people are at any given time to make to pull the strings that I need to. The game has a really, really good system where you can pull up the map and the map gives you perfect information about where everybody is at any given time and what areas have events going on, even if you don't know what those events are.
Oh, good.
And it also gives you a timeline where it'll show you every character, what scenes they're in, and when those scenes are happening if you know when they're going to happen. As well as if you've done something to cause an event that you know could happen to be unlikely or not happen, it won't. And you'll see a big X that's like, this event can't happen. So like if you go and get Hamlet killed, or if you go get Claudius killed on like the first day, then the Hamlet never has the play. If you if somehow you get the queen killed, then Hamlet doesn't stab your dad. If you ingratiate yourself with one person and find out where they've hidden something, and they know where they know that you know that where they've hidden it, so they'll go and move it so you can't find it. But on the next playthrough, they don't know that you know, so you can go find it.
I feel like this is the sort of game you need a notebook for.
And the interesting thing is that I didn't, because the UX is good enough that I can the UX and the journal that you keep and the way it presents all of the information is complete enough and thorough enough that I was like, okay, what is it that I'm trying to do this time around? What am I trying to do differently? How can I affect this?
I bring up OpenSite for a reason, but that was a large improvement OpenSite made over stories.
It's like, really, really cool.
It's very useful if the game keeps all of these notes for you, so you don't have to keep track of what occurs when and where do I need to be to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yes. The game does all of that for you. And it's hugely improved as a result. Like, this game I probably wouldn't enjoy if it didn't have that, but because it does, and because it just automatically fills all of this in for you, as well as your journal, and as well as, like, it also does a really nice thing where by the end of the game, a million different things that you can talk to people about, and it will gray out ones that aren't relevant. So it'll say things like, this person doesn't care about that, or this isn't true. Like, in this timeline, this statement isn't true. You can't warn Polonius that Hamlet's going to stab him if Hamlet's already dead. But you also have to there's also a bit of, like, care that you need to take, because the other thing is that after each conversation, if there's any major state changes, it'll let you know. And so you can say things like, Hamlet now believes that Ophelia believes in the ghost of King Hamlet. Like, Hamlet now believes that Ophelia believes him when he talks about having seen a ghost. But you can also get to things like, Polonius now believes that Ophelia is losing her mind.
I was going to say, is it useful to have Hamlet advocate for you after a certain point?
It depends on what you're trying to do. That's my favorite part, is that, like, almost every character is interesting, and you can go down these, like, deep rabbit holes with each character and kind of manipulate their whole thing. Like, I spent a whole bunch of time... So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are both women.
Oh. Okay.
Which is relevant because they're gay and as is Horatio, and can help Horatio. And if you find all of these things, you can, like, basically play matchmaker for Hamlet and Horatio, which goes down its own crazy path. But yeah, it's really fun. It's basically like a machine that you can pick at the threads at. I like it for all of the same reasons that I like stealth games. Because you're sort of like watching a thing watching a machine tick along, and then either throwing a wrench in the works or making small little adjustments to make it play out the way you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd played this when it had come out, it would absolutely have made my game of the year, because it's really, really good.
I see I'm not the only person who's catching up on games from last year about now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thing. Like, we usually are playing games not in the year that they came out, unless it's a thing that we've all been chasing. So, something that did come out this year, sort of, I mean, I guess, but not really, like, it's still in early access.
Look, it's out.
TemTem!
It's functionally out.
Like, if you can pay money to play it, it's out.
Not only that, it's an MMO that won't get any more wipes, so it's definitely out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, TemTem is basically a Pokemon MMO. That's the premise. I backed it eons ago, and I've played a couple times throughout its alpha history. It's Pokemon in MMO form. That's all you really need to know. Instead of Pokeballs, you have, like, these digitized cards that you throw at things, and, digitize the monsters. So I'm not exactly sure what all that's about, but you have very Pokemon-esque critters that you capture. I am running around with a melee monkey that I named Wukong, and also a toucan bird that I named Sam, and that's pretty much my power combo. You have a squad of up to 6 Pokemon. I mean, TemTem, or TemTams, or TemTems? I don't know. And
I'm just thinking of Timbits.
Yeah. And you have 2 out at any given time. And that's kind of the thing that's different, is you always have 2 critters out at once. So, like, if you encounter pairs of people out in the wilds, you both always have 2 out. Like there's never a situation where you are unless you only have the one that you've gotten, but you're given a second one almost instantly.
So it's the way Pokemon's supposed to be balanced.
Yes.
Yeah, like you are either overpowering a single critter or it's a bunch of matches, like pair battles.
What should you play TemTem on?
I am playing it on the PC because I think that's all that it's available on is the PC.
For right now, I think so. I feel plans to launch on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and Switch.
I feel like the correct service will eventually be the Switch. I'm hoping I can just log into my character on the Switch, but like it is attached to your Steam account, so your mileage may vary. The only thing that I don't like about it, I mean, and that's it does not have whatever the thing is that Pokemon now has that allows you to XP share to your critters that are in reserve. So, like, if you're going to level them, you have to actually be fighting with them. Other than that, like, it is as close to Pokemon the MMO as you're ever going to get, probably. Like, it is called a different thing. The critters are different things, but effectively it plays just like you expect Pokemon to play.
I'm here for it.
The best thing that it does is you do not have male and female characters. You have a bunch of body types and a bunch of attributes that you can assign, and then when you name your character, you choose your pronouns.
I like it.
So like,
I hadn't even been following this. I'm here for this.
You can like be whatever you want.
I know somebody who's really mad that they didn't get to work on this.
Is it Pulse Age?
Might be.
I mean, the thing is like it did not have a smooth launch.
It's an MMO and they don't have smooth launches.
True facts.
Like it did not have a smooth launch. However, I have to give the company credit because like they're based in Madrid, Spain, and if I did the math correctly, they finally gave up on patches at 10 a.m. and went to bed.
Oh my goodness.
I think they released 4 or 5 patches that night.
But they also released late in the evening European time.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
So yeah, like I mean, it is mostly stable now. I'm not encountering any issues. At first, there was this weird glitch that was happening where basically your connection was brought down by the speed of the connection of the lowest person that's connected to the game.
Oh, jeez.
So it was some kind of peer-to-peer madness that was happening. So like that first night I was in a 9,000 character queue logging in, and that went pretty quickly. And then I created my character, and so long as I was in the tutorial part that doesn't have me around other characters, it was sluggish, but it was okay. When I first entered the world where I can start seeing other people, the first random encounter just froze. And 15 minutes later, I still hadn't gotten to combat, and I just gave up for the night. So that was launch day. From what I can tell, like I was in earlier today, and it was fine. It was perfectly fine. If you want to play a Pokemon MMO, and honestly, like so the one takeaway that I would give you is Pokemon like kind of juices your characters so that you can kind of steamroll for a really long time. That is not so much of a thing here. You could straight up lose like pretty early. You do not have much of a level curve difference between you and the wild TemTem encounters. So like yeah, like you're gonna, and it is a while before you find your first Pokemart equivalent. Now, one thing that's kind of cool is you have those out in the wild to where like there's just a roadside stand that has a couple of kiosks, one that lets you modify your inventory, one that recharges your critters, and then one that sells you some basic stuff, so you don't always have to go to a town to find them. And I've found a spot where I'm kind of grinding right now, that's like right around the corner from one of those, so I can just keep going over there to heal my Pokemon. I mean, my Pokemon, my TemTems, my critters, whatever.
So what is the what is the way the multiplayer, the online elements happen?
So I think it's parties of 2. You basically add each other to your friends list, and then you can party up. So instead of 2 of your critters fighting at the same time, it would be like I control one and you control one.
Got it.
It also, of course, has PvP, I believe, but whatever. Ignore that if you don't like it.
Yeah.
So does normal Pokemon. Most people ignore it.
I mean, it's got similar rock, paper, scissors system that you're familiar with Pokemon, just the names are slightly different. I mean, you've got neutral, fire, water, nature, electric, earth, mental, wind, digital, melee, crystal, and toxic. And I haven't encountered most of those elements. You're given a choice between a melee, a mental, and I believe a nature starter. I went with the monkey because I went with the monkey, and I wanted to name it. I wanted to name it Wukong because it's like an orange-haired monkey. Like, I mean, supposedly it's the weakest of the starters, and it's been fine. It has a weird mechanic, and I think this is just a melee mechanic in that there's almost a rage bar type system to where, like, when you first enter battle as a melee type, the only thing you can do is like a basic melee, and then doing that in turn 1 makes it so that you've got enough fury or whatever to be able to do some of your bigger attacks. There's an endurance system, like a mana system, instead of you get a number of this attack, which kind of works interestingly, because, like, say an attack takes 5 stamina, I think is actually what the system's called, and you only have 2 stamina on your bar. If you use that, you will overexert yourself, and in doing the attack, you will damage yourself. So, like, I don't know the math yet, but it seems like a portion of the attack actually hits you as well. So, like, you really have to be careful with the stamina gauge. It's not that it just won't let you do an attack. It will absolutely let you do an attack, and based on how much you're overexerting yourself, you deal damage to yourself. In a lot of ways, combat kind of reminds me of... God, I'm drawing a blank, Ash. What was the
Wizard
game?
101?
No. The one that we played at PAX South that is from Undead Labs. That...
Oh, I do not remember the name of that game.
That did not... Moonrise.
Yes, Moonrise.
Yes. It reminds me a lot of Moonrise. Because it also did the two critters on the screen at once thing. And it also had like a stamina system instead of like a fixed number of attacks that you can do before you rest.
As I've pointed out, competitive Pokemon also assumes that you're 2v2. And I really, really wish they'd balance the main game for that.
One of the interesting things about it being stamina and not a fixed amount of attacks is it actually lets you stay out in the wild longer if you're fighting like stuff that's underneath your power. Like, so if you can somehow kill stuff before it really damages yours, your stamina resets at the beginning of the next combat. So you can essentially just stay out forever. And it also makes, like, Bomb is their version of the potion, which just, I mean, like, it makes those more powerful in that you can just keep going because you're not having to worry about your constantly depleting pool of moves. It's worth checking out. I'm going to be playing around with it. I have not done anything multiplayer yet.
It is extremely Pokemon in the first 5 minutes.
It is
Pokemon.
exactly Pokemon.
In a
It's
very
Pokemon.
good way.
So, one thing of note, like, this is something that I wish I knew earlier. If you go back to, like, the first town that you start in doesn't have a Pokemart. If you go back to your house, your mom will heal your Pokemon. So you can basically grind a little bit in that starter town if you want. It's as Pokemon as they can be without getting sued. Okay, Kodra. I hear you have taken our advice and started playing Into the Breach.
I think you have one more turn syndrome.
I also have one more turn syndrome. Well, but the problem with Into the Breach that is not necessarily true with Fire Emblem Three Houses is Fire Emblem will give me a point where I'm like, oh, now I have to do a bunch of like running around this base, which is like I'm getting interesting story, but I'm not getting like addictive gameplay during those periods, so it's easy to put it down. Into the Breach does not have that. Into the Breach is like mission, come on, let's go. And it presents me with fascinating puzzles because like have we talked about this game on this show and I just missed it?
No.
Nope.
You all failed me. It presents you with a whole bunch of options that both do a predetermined amount of damage. So, like, I can know if I hit this person, they're going to take this many hit points. Like, I can perfectly know how there is no randomness here. The only randomness is what monsters are going to spawn, but I even see where they're going to spawn in case I want to block something. But I am just trying to use my various attacks in various ways to protect the cities and put the enemies perfectly out of place with this mishmash of abilities. And as I level up, I'm getting more abilities, and I'm finding more ways of exploiting the heck out of the enemies and getting them just delightfully out of place. One of the things that always makes me just smile in this game is when I have to go up and hover over the portion of the game that shows me the specific initiative order of all of the enemies. So I can be like, okay, if I move this enemy here, it's going to attack this location, which has its friend in it. Is that attack going to fire before or after that the enemy it's attacking gets a turn? And then, like, just setting up these delightful little chain reactions. So I've only been playing on normal, but I'm getting ready to go to hard.
Yeah, this was a game that I tried and kind of bounced off of because it just like wasn't what I was looking for, and then kind of forgot about. But I remember thinking it was really good because it really is about setting up complex chains of moves to solve puzzles.
And it's a roguelike, so every single you're time travelers. And they use time travel in this to let you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. But yeah, you're big mecha and you're fighting the kaiju. But like, watch out, make sure that the kaiju doesn't push you back into the town, because then you're gonna damage the town and they'll be upset and you'll lose grid power. But the game is very good at giving you like perfect information of like, at a glance I can see, okay, what are the threatened squares this turn? What are the enemies I need to deal with to make those squares no longer threatened? I'm currently feel spoiled because I can't tell if I found a set of mechs that is just perfectly suited for my playstyle or if they're actually just overpowered. But the mech squad that drops lightning smoke is all I've been playing lately. Lightning smoke is awesome.
So what does that do?
So smoke is a standard thing. You cannot attack if you are in smoke. So you can drop smoke on enemies to stop them from attacking that turn. Lightning smoke means enemies inside of a smoke cloud take a point of damage at the start of their turn. And I can upgrade that so that enemies in smoke clouds take 2 damage. And I have a unit that can drop bombs in two spaces in front of them, and those bombs also drop smoke. So it deals damage, and they take damage from the smoke, and they don't attack that turn.
Do you know what can protect you from lightning smoke?
What's that?
Ferrite beads.
Let the healing begin. No,
How did we get here?
I am so the one thing I will say kind of against the game is that I feel like the factions are not The couple of different mechs I've played, there's one where it's like, oh man, this lightning smoke is amazing, and then there's one where it's like, I do not know why I would ever play this group of units. They are bad.
That might be intentional.
It might be. But yeah, I was actually kind of surprised at how... So I guess this is part of being a roguelike, but it was not... It's by the people who made FTL. FTL, I felt like I needed to get a lot of plays before, and I never actually got to a playthrough where I was able to beat it. And in this one, like on my second playthrough, I beat it. So this game is a lot more forgiving than FTL. It's also, I felt, a lot faster.
What's the average time of a playthrough?
I think it was like maybe two or so hours. So
that's not too bad.
The trick is that you can actually like increase your playtime, because there are 4 islands and you can go to the end boss after island 2, and it's supposed to be rebalanced in case you do that. And I absolutely did. After I beat my first 2 islands on my like second playthrough, I went in and I just punked the boss. Or I did the final encounter, which it doesn't really include a boss. But bosses are a very nebulous concept in that game. Also, you get to... It is not purely roguelike. You do get to take one of your pilots, which gives your mech some advantages from playthrough to playthrough. But I feel like that's expected. Like, even if you lose, you get to keep one of your pilots. And I just happen to find a pilot that's really, really powerful with my current list, so that's what I've been doing, is bringing her along. Because we're all time travelers, and as soon as we beat the boss, they time travel out and go to the next one. But I did end up playing this game until 2 a.m. one day this week, and decided that maybe I can't play it anymore.
What platform are you playing it on?
I am playing this on Steam.
Okay. Like, I think it actually just recently came out for Switch, and I was curious if it was playable on Switch.
I have not tried that. I might pick it up. I am trying to get back through 3 houses right now. So that's probably where I'll be.
Looks like it launched for the Switch actually in August of 2018. So it's been on the Switch for a while.
Okay. So, this week, Theros, The Revenge of Theros came out. I don't remember what the Theros set is called.
Beyond Death.
Theros Beyond Death.
More Theros in your Theros. And one of the cards that got reprinted is Underworld Dreams.
Uh-huh.
And, like, I remember this being just, like, a really powerful card and a really sought-after card back in the day. And it has been a really long time.
Until this set, it was, like, an almost $5 card, so...
Well, it's been really, like, it's been a while. I think, like, Core 10 or whatever. Like before it was called Core, I think that was the last set that was in. And what's weird, though, is, like, it's always been a rare card. And they shifted it to uncommon? And
maybe more enchantments at uncommon, given the set's large enchantment theme?
I guess. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm guessing, like, for today's Magic, it's just not as powerful as it once was.
Yeah.
I can definitely think of some commander decks where I want this card.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, but I think the goal is to be make Commander more accessible, right?
Yeah.
That too.
I mean, for those who don't know what Underworld Dreams does, it's basically whenever your opponent draws a card, Underworld Dreams deals 1 damage. And, like...
Didn't one of the Planeswalkers have this as their passive in War of the Spark?
I don't remember.
Yes. Ob Nixilis the Hate Twisted. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Ob Nixilis the Hate Twisted deals 1 damage to that player.
Okay, so it already had a functional reprint last in War of the Spark, I guess.
I mean, that's a Planeswalker, so he could have been attacked. But Underworld Dreams, you can't attack. Also an uncommon, though. He was one of the Planeswalkers that only had a minus.
Like, if you could build a deck around this, there is a tutor for enchantments in Theros as well.
Is there a new one, or is it Enlightened Tutor?
It's Enlightened Tutor. Yeah, they reprinted that one as well.
Oh, that's probably... Has that done anything to the price of Enlightened Tutor?
I don't think they reprinted this card. So it's something else. I don't know what it is, though.
Idyllic Tutor. It is a tutor at sorcery speed. Search your library for an enchantment, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then reshuffle your library. It is two nondescript mana and 1 white.
Okay, that was a $30 card before this set.
Yeah, it was last in Morningtide.
Yep.
And now it is reprinted at Rare.
At Rare.
So, like, that's 2 really good reprints.
They've been focusing a bit on that lately, in general. Like, some things that have really, really needed reprints got them in some form. Of course, some of these were very limited form, like things that appeared in Secret Lair or things that appeared in the mystery boosters. But at least it's something, and it definitely did bring down the price of a lot of cards.
Yeah. And at least in the case of Underworld Dreams, like, its reprinting is going to do nothing to the original Legends card prices, because that's Legends.
Apparently it was uncommon in Legends.
I thought it was rare in Legends.
Nope.
That was before, like, boosters were standardized.
Well, and back then they also had U1 and U2.
Yeah.
So there were, like, some uncommons that were less common than uncommons. Because, like, Arabian Nights and Antiquities had no rare cards. There were U1 and U2, I think, and that was it.
They retroactively made some of those rare.
So I did not crack much of the Fable set that was the previous set. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Throne of Eldraine.
Throne of Eldraine. Yeah, there you go. Could you get, like, the box topper cards in normal packs in Throne of Eldraine?
Not normal packs.
Okay, I pulled a box topper full art card from a normal Theros
Is it a land?
pack. No, it was a...
Was it Athreos?
It was one of the mythic gods.
Wait. Those aren't box toppers. They might be premium cards, but they're not box toppers.
Well, I mean, they're the full art style, kind of like
Yeah,
Oko
that's
was
fine.
last time. Okay.
No.
And
Those
it
are
was foil.
premium cards.
Yeah, like I get what you're saying. Not an actual box topper, but the style of the box toppers from what, Ultimate Masters or whatever that was.
Yeah. They're doing fancier treatments of cards in all packs at this point, but they are also definitely selling collector boosters that have more of those. And that was the only way to get otherwise exclusive cards for Eldraine.
And, like, I don't remember this being a thing, but, like, I bought a fat pack, and it had, like, a little pack that had a bunch of foil land, a bunch of normal land, and then 2 copies of the same foil rare. And I don't remember that existing in, I guess they call them bundles now, not fat packs, but yeah. I don't remember that existing before.
That one, I don't know what it is.
Anyway, I am amused that the cards that I remember playing with, that I remember trying to hunt down, are being reprinted finally. And I still feel like Underworld Dreams is more than it, like, deserves to be more than just an uncommon. Although, I guess you can buy black-themed boosters if you really want them, since they have a ridiculous number of uncommons in them. Other than that, I've not messed around much with the set. So, do we have anything else we want to talk about?
I'm playing, what is it? Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore, which is a name that I can't believe Square Enix didn't come up with. But I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet. It's very interesting having a game that is definitely an SMT game with Fire Emblem references all over the place about the Japanese idol industry.
It's very colorful.
Wow.
I'm still unpacking that statement.
Yeah.
I will probably still be playing Greedfall all week, because I thought I was really close to the end, but apparently I'm not close at all. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night!
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.